Hi everyone, greeting and respect. My name is Ismail ERCAN. I am a mechanical engineer. I am researching how to solve the world's most important problem, poverty, and the planning of poor people or whether I can remotely solve this problem. Therefore, I first need to establish a system. Within that system, I have compiled that document I have prepared and by other work to establish an industrialization management system using the ISO 9001 quality management system into a video using Notebook LM. I welcome your comment and suggestion. I will open the video now. For now on, I'll trying to publish videos that recommend what countries should to do industrialize. Now I am sharing the industrialization management system video with you.
Welcome to the Explainer. So today we're tackling a really ambitious idea. What if you could use a management system, the kind a big corporation uses, but instead of building a company, you build an entire country's industrial might from the ground up? It's a wild question, right? Can you build an entire nation's economy with a manual? But it's not just a thought experiment. There's actually a detailed technical specification that proposes exactly that. So yeah, let's dive in. All right, so when we think about industrial strategy, you're probably picturing, I don't know, high-level policies, big government plans, that sort of thing. But this document, it's different. It gets right down into the nuts and bolts, applying a systematic approach you'd usually only see inside a single company. So the whole idea is actually inspired by something you might have heard of, quality management systems, like ISO 9001. Basically, these are frameworks, rule books, that companies use to make sure their products and services are consistently up to snuff. But here's the thing, they almost always operate within the walls of just one company. But what if? What if you took that same structured thinking and applied it to an entire country's industrial strategy? That is the absolute core idea behind this concept, which is called the Industrialization Management System, or IMS for short. Okay, so what is the IMS, really? Well, you can think of it as the operating system for a nation's industrial growth. It's not just a vague policy, it's a strategic framework designed to systematically build up a country's ability to manufacture and export goods. And this is where you can really see the massive shift in scale and ambition. A traditional system like ISO 9001 is all about one organization. Its goal is quality within that company. The IMS, on the other hand, is focused on an entire nation, or maybe a region, or a sector. And the goal? It's all about achieving sustainable production across the whole country. What's really interesting is how the system redefines industrialization itself. According to the IMS, it's the process of setting up an entrepreneur and the whole ecosystem around them to get to mechanized production. So it's not about giant top-down projects. It's about empowering individual people, the entrepreneurs, to be the real engine of growth. And this whole thing isn't some static plan you just set and forget. Nope. It's designed to be a dynamic loop of constant improvement. It's called the PDCA cycle, which stands for plan, do, check, and act. Think of it as the system's heartbeat. You make a plan, you do it, you check the results, and then you act on what you learned to make it better. It ensures the whole system can adapt and evolve. All right, let's get into the core components. How is this engine of production actually built? It all comes down to a few key interconnected pillars. First, you've got what you could call the central body. Think of it like a mission control. It could be a public agency, a private company, or even an NGO. Its one job is to run and monitor the entire industrialization process, making sure all the different parts are working together. Now, this next part is absolutely crucial. The system doesn't just sit back and hope for good ideas to pop up, it creates a product pool. What's that? It's basically a library of projects that come with ready-made technical manufacturing files. These are just handed over to entrepreneurs. This is a game changer because it massively lowers the barrier to entry. And this is just brilliant. It also tackles that other huge hurdle, money, access to capital. There's a finance system that is completely integrated with these projects. So when an entrepreneur picks a project from that product pool, the money they need to actually start production is already there, ready to go. Okay, we've talked about the big picture structure, but what does this feel like for an actual person, right? For an entrepreneur? Well, the whole system is really designed around their journey. And this is a really important shift in thinking. The entire system is customer-focused. But in this case, the customer is the entrepreneur. The system is built from the ground up to support them and make sure they succeed. So what does that support actually look like? Well, it's pretty comprehensive. We're talking entrepreneurship training, that access to the product pool we mentioned, the integrated financing, but also things like technical worker training, mentorship, incubation, and even help with all the paperwork for exporting. It's the whole shebang. The goal here is really clear: turn a motivated person into a successful exporter. It's a complete pathway designed to take all that personal ambition and channel it into real, measurable national economic output. So what's the ultimate goal of all of this? What's the end game? Well, the system has some very clear, very measurable goals for the entire nation. Okay, let's look at the national industrial policy goals. The big ones are reduce imports and increase exports. Makes sense. But also to implement and improve vocational training so you have the skilled workers you need, and to gather data to constantly get better. A huge one is to actually localize the production of goods that are currently being imported. The desired result, then, is a pretty major strategic economic shift. You can see it here. The idea is to push imports down while at the same time pushing exports and employment up. It's all about a fundamental transformation of the economy. And this quote really gets at a fascinating part of the philosophy here. It says the IMS aims for sustainable production first, seeing quality as the next stage. So the first priority isn't perfection. It's just getting the engine of production running and making sure it can keep running. Quality comes later once that foundation is built. So it leaves you with a pretty powerful question, doesn't it? Could a management blueprint really be a nation's most powerful economic tool? By taking this super systematic, process-driven approach and scaling it up from a single factory to an entire country, well, the IMS presents a really compelling and provocative model for growth. It's a fascinating idea to think about.